Rob is a friend and colleague of mine. He went to St. Louis University. He's got an Jesus Christ. I hate when this happens. Welcome to the channel. This is a special episode. I have been teasing the new podcast, and I brought my co-host here, Rob Patterson, Dr. Rob Patterson. So Rob,
hello,
welcome
everyone.
to the show.
Thank
This
you.
is a special episode. It's a special episode for my audience because I'm going to talk about the new podcast called Shrink Space. I'm going to introduce you to Rob. But I think more important than that, it's a special day for Rob because he has been a longtime listener, viewer, follower of all things PSYCH. So welcome. Welcome to the big stage, Rob.
I appreciate the introduction there, Dave. I think in your what was likely to be very meticulous research and education here, you overlooked one fact, which is I've never seen or listened to you on YouTube before in my life. And that was a purposeful decision. That was a purposeful decision on my end.
Sorry, the reception's bad. I didn't hear that last part they said. Okay, Rob Patterson's got a PhD from St. Louis University in industrial organizational psychology. He used to work at the VA in the education and development arm, and his dissertation is on factors that predict resistance to organizational changes. Now, I just went through that list. I was reading on my screen all the things that Rob has done, and I know it seemed excruciatingly boring.
I would say impressive, but yes.
But it gets worse. The more you know Rob, it just gets worse. So Rob is also, here's what I would say. You will find that Rob is a very likable, charismatic guy. But on paper, he is the biggest nerd in the world. So like his hobbies are, he likes to understand maps and like how map features work together. Even though maps don't change a lot, he finds it riveting.
Only someone who doesn't know maps would say that, but go ahead.
He's really into Whitney Houston, all things Whitney Houston.
As someone who was never able to see Whitney Houston in person, my wife and I, a couple of years ago in Vegas, did go to the Whitney Houston hologram show, which was amazing.
Yep, folks. It doesn't get much dorkier than this. And I should also say he is as granola as they come. You can smell the patchouli from here. He drives an electrical vehicle, the whole nine. Only eats tofu. So anyway, I'm excited to introduce you to Dr. Rob Patterson. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. I certainly appreciate it. I feel like I need to engage in a lot of defending of myself, but I'm not going to do that because yours is coming. Yours is coming. Just wait. Wait. But in all reality, I'm very excited for the invitation to be part of this conversation with you and to get an opportunity to chat with your listeners and supporters as well.
Perfect. So I can say all of these, I think, accurate things about Rob, but I thought it would be better for you all to get to know him through an interview. So we've got a few interview questions for you today. So Rob, the first question is, why are you or how are you different than me? This audience, I think, adores me, by the way, so you better tread lightly.
Yeah, I think, how am I different? Well, let me count the ways. I mean, I think your audience does adore you, but probably not for the reasons that you think they do, Dave. Your grandiose sense of self and your frenetic energy, I liken to like a balloon that's on the verge of popping all the time. And so I think it's flying high. Everybody likes the balloon. Everybody wants to touch and hold the balloon. Is that what you're talking about? Sorry. Everyone wants to touch the balloon. Everyone wants to touch the balloon. I think you would like to think that that's the case, Dave, but I don't think that that's the case. I think instead what people will get from me is a very realistic understanding of the topics that we talk about. Whereas you are frenetic and about to burst at any given moment, I'm going to be a bit more cool, calm, collected, composed in my reactions to things. So I think we'll get something very different from how you react to things as opposed to how I react to things.
Sounds like I'm going to be pointed and discerning, and you're going to be like kind of like on Quaaludes while you're thinking through these issues. Is that?
Yeah, you get speed and
But
quickness
okay.
here, so it'll be very different. Yeah.
Okay, I guess that is a yes.
Should that be the subtitle of Free Space?
Yeah.
Colon speed and Quaaludes.
Yes. Good. Okay. Perfect. So can you talk a little bit about why you wanted to do this podcast? Because you and I have been discussing this for a long time, and have been working on it, now for about 9 months.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about like why you were interested in doing a podcast?
Yeah, I would say just more broadly, having a platform and an opportunity to talk about different topics that are related to psychology, things that interest me about people and their dynamics was something I was interested in. I would also say I was not ever someone who was going to do this by themselves. As a pretty social person, doing it with someone else was going to be important. And as much as I hope to make fun of you over the course of our time doing this together, I think it was important to be able to do this with someone who I also found insightful, intelligent, and fun to do this with. And I would describe you that way. So,
Oh, that was sweet, Rob. That must have felt good coming out.
It didn't. No. Anytime I give a compliment, particularly to someone like you, it's like you have to swallow a little bit and prepare for it, and then have to come back with something just really cutting afterwards. Which will come.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I was interested in, and why I was interested in doing this.
Yeah, I think I am excited about it, and I've wanted to do it because I think that it is difficult. There's not really a platform for people to transparently talk about psychology. Mm-hmm. And I think that most people in the mental health field, because they are, I think, overly concerned with how they're being perceived, don't say anything that is, I think, reactive or overly sophisticated. I feel like everything is sort of bland and milquetoast because no one wants to get in trouble. And I feel like you are a good person to have this podcast with, because I think you are very good about talking about fringe ideas and talking about concepts without feeling like you have to say whatever the mainstream view is.
Sure.
And I think I've never seen you, and as long as I've known you, I've never seen you get like emotionally wrapped up in an idea. I think you're very good about talking about an idea intellectually, but you don't over-identify with it so that you don't, so that it prevents you from thinking. And I think that I'm hoping that this podcast creates sort of a place where we can have those kind of conversations less checked than we would be elsewhere.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And I would also say, just given the work that you and I do, which is talking to a number of leaders and individuals who work in organizations and talking about dynamics in that environment, there are a lot of insights that I think we both gathered over the decade I've been doing this, and slightly over a decade I think that you've been doing this. Mm-hmm. That I think give us some unique insights into how people interact and work together that can also generalize to kind of anyone interacting regardless of the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want people to get a better idea of kind of sort of who you are and how you got here. So can you talk about like what was your path? What attracted you to the field of psychology?
So it started even as a little kid. I think a lot of people who get into psychology enjoy being the person who is observing others and not necessarily wanting to be the focus of observation. And that was certainly the case for me, especially as a younger person. Someone who always wanted to understand, well, why is this happening? Particularly because it was easy for me to be on the outside and not on the inside. My nerdiness as an adult was also nerdiness as a child.
Wait, that wasn't real cool when you were in high school?
No, as you can imagine, no. I did not play a single sport, but you know what? I went to the state geography B. So that'll give you some insight into the things that I was able to get into as a kid.
And he lost the state geography B because he didn't know the terminus of the Transcontinental Railroad
Wow.
in Russia.
That's,
Is that right?
That's good. That's a good memory. Yes.
So here's the concern, Rob, is I have heard you complain about your high school defeat so many times that I know the correct answer.
Vladivostok is the answer to the question. I will never forget that. But no, so I would say, just curiosity about people and dynamics. And, did you ever take those, in high school or maybe in college too, those tests, those aptitude tests that would say, hey, this is the type of work that you should go into?
Yes. Like the Campbell's Skills and Interest Inventory, or whatever it was called.
Sure. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know that anything I took in high school or college was that sophisticated, but yes. What did yours tell you to do?
I still remember forestry. And I don't know why. I remember being like, forestry? That was like my strongest.
Like you just wanted to go camping a lot and like
I guess I don't know.
trees?
Yeah.
Were you 7 when you completed this?
I think so. Yeah, it was heavy forestry. But yours was psychology?
Mine was not. It was kind of anything on the helping side. So, psychologist was certainly part of that. And I think pretty early on, I knew that was something I wanted to do, even though I didn't know what it was. So, as a lot of people who go into psychology, right, it has to be one of the top 2 or 3 majors of any university.
Yeah.
Everyone goes into psychology because it's about people, so it's inherently interesting. But yeah, I thought I wanted to go into psychiatry because I wanted to be a medical doctor, then talk to a few, and they did not seem too into their jobs. And so I'm like, all right, I'll go into clinical psychology, talk to a few. They as well seem to steer clear, to suggest that I steer clear of that. And so I'm in college and taking a couple classes and came up to organizational psychology and finally found my calling. But yeah, it was more the helping side of things, wanting to help support people.
I whenever I'm asked this question, my default historically has been to say, I think that people, because I wanted to be I'm trained as a therapist.
Right.
And what I would always tell people is what no one will tell you is that a therapist really wants to get into the field because they are voyeurs. They're just verbal voyeurs that just want to hear the story of somebody else's, life. And I was attracted to the idea that I could hear about that. And then I was given some constructive feedback that voyeurs are often like sexual deviants, and that it made people think that I was like out of a window leering at people. So I've changed.
Is that how you described it to people? It's like I want to give this because I'm kind of a voyeur.
Yeah, I just said I think that's why people get into it, because they're voyeurs.
Oh,
and I think people think voyeur, and they think, but I do think that there's a part of me that is inherently nosy, and I think that there's the allure of learning from people, or learning about people, that attracted me to the field.
Yeah,
I will also say, when I was, I think 14, roughly 14, I was babysitting my younger brothers. And I have 3 younger brothers, and the oldest one is 7 years younger than me. So I would have been 14, he would have been like 7 or 15, and he's 8, something like that. And this kid was like Lucifer. And my parents left me alone and said, go ahead, just why don't you watch the boys? I have 3 young, right? And they are 3 monsters, but the oldest one was the most difficult. And so I said, hey, go to bed on time or I'm going to give you a swirly. He said, prove it. He didn't say prove it, but he sort of said prove it. So I
that's what
dunked
you took
his
away.
head. Yeah, so I dunked some. That was my takeaway. So I gave him a swirly. And then the other 2 were like, what's going on in there? And so I lined them all up and I gave all 3 of them swirlies.
And they allowed it to happen? There was no squiggling, squirming?
Well, the first one didn't like it. The second one was like sort of like, I guess I have to do it. And then the third one, because he was like, I think he must have been like 3. I mean, much younger, and was like, oh, my older brothers are doing this. I guess I'm doing it. And so I didn't put his head in the water, but I put it in the toilet. So and then the younger one, who's it, Benedict Arnold, went and told on me. And and my stepmom goes, what kind of monster do we have running in this household? So she took me to therapy. And she said, we're going to grandma's house. And then we ended up at a therapist's office. And the therapist goes, why would you dunk your kid brother's heads in the toilet? And I go, I don't know. And she goes, did you think it was cool? And I said, no, stupid. And then, I mean, I didn't say stupid, but I thought, or I made her think that I thought she was stupid.
Yep.
But internally, I was like, holy shit, this is the most insightful woman on the planet. And I wanted to be just like her. And since then, I knew I wanted to be a therapist. So that's like the whole arc of my psychology journey.
That's such a better answer than mine. Because I had never interacted with a psychologist before becoming one, which is a good kind of just realistic experience, even though it was only one time and you're 15 or whatever. But
Yeah.
I would say two things that, or I guess just one thing that align with that is, there is some interesting desire to just kind of be a part of someone's experience that not many people know. I think the voyeur side probably makes a little bit more sense. Like you're interested enough in other people to want to do that.
Yeah.
And then the psychological side, the closest story I have is I have a younger sister, and I think she might say this, and maybe I would say this too. But as a younger sister, I would run maybe rudimentary experiments on her as a kid, and just do things and just see what her reaction would be. So one day, I don't know. I like to tell myself that she had pissed me off, but I think this was just something I was curious to see how she would respond. I was like 11 or 12, and I decided, what would be fun to do today is to let my sister know that she was adopted. She's not adopted. But I thought, it would be really fun
kind
to
of you,
do
Rob.
is to tell her that. And you know how to do that? You can't just tell someone because, any kid whose older brother tells them they're adopted, no, you're not. You have to have some proof. You have to have a formal document. So I got onto some, word processor circa, 1995.
Jesus, this is you were a very methodical little guy, huh?
Right. Well, and I think that's one of the differences between two of us. Right? I will be very methodical and detail oriented.
Yes.
And you won't be.
Yeah.
You're just giving people swirlies kind of run the mill. And
That's
I have
right.
a whole series of steps
Yes.
prior.
That's
to
right.
my
And just to be clear,
engagement.
it sounds like you are far sicker. But go ahead, keep going with.
I wish I still had the paper. Like, I don't know where it is. But I typed something up that probably just said, person, you're adopted, date, whatever. And I put it in a manila folder and put it in my parents' filing cabinet. I thought that's how she's going to know. And then I think I just passively one day said, well, something, because you're adopted. She's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, oh, you've never seen it. So I'm like, here's the file. Let me pull it out, and here it is. And just the reaction, I got the reaction I thought I was going to get, which was she was nonplussed. And I was also severely reprimanded.
Wait, so then she ran to your parents, or what happened from there?
Yeah, I don't remember all of. I just remember because I was overall a pretty good kid, except for messing with my sister. But I remember I did get grounded. I remember I think it was one of the only times in life with my parents I ever got grounded. I got a severe reprimanding, a verbal reprimanding of never doing that again. So, but I did go to a lot of work there.
Yeah, that's
Still kind of proud of it, which is not so great.
that's good. I guess our audience learned something about you here today, Rob.
They sure did.
That's
They
good.
Sure did.
Is there anything that you believe? This is your next question.
Okay.
What do you believe that nobody else believes?
Ooh, what do I believe?
This is like one of those dinner questions, like right after
Yeah.
you meet Jesus and
What do
your
you
dad
say?
and whoever. What do you believe that nobody else believes?
Huh. I don't know. So my first answer, this is the first thing that comes to mind. And this is not something that no one else believes. But it's something that, other people may not believe as strongly. This is certainly informed by the work that I do as well. But in that argument or conversation around nature versus nurture, in my experience, nature, the situation, the impact that an environment has on someone is very powerful, and I would say more powerful than nurture, than your genetics. I have continued to find that understanding people and the way that they tick and the way that they operate in any environment, including in a workplace setting, is so much informed by their past experiences and less informed by some genetics. And of course, there's going to be some differences here. You know, you and I might, over the course of our conversations, are going to talk about different mental health disorders and things like that. But I'm just talking about more generic, routine, day-to-day people, how they come across to others in a certain situation is very much impacted by their past experiences in a way that's kind of above and beyond their genetics. That's what I've come to find in the work that we do.
Interesting.
What about you?
What do I believe that nobody else does?
Yeah.
The one that stands out to me, and because my wife finds incredibly frustrating, is that I believe that there's no such thing as evil. Like, I think there's nobody that is evil. I think that
Look, you're such a softie. Who would have thought?
I know. Yeah. See, but my
Such a
wife,
softie.
it makes Allison angry because she's like, you're not holding anybody accountable. And I think that people should be held accountable. But I guess maybe to your point, I think that if you know where everybody comes from,
Yeah.
like you realize that everybody's doing their best, everybody is given the skills and characteristics that they have, they're approaching the world kind of as best they can. And so, and I think people come from sometimes from horrific places that lead to horrific behavior, and I would consequence them for it, but I don't know that I agree that they are evil. And I probably feel that way even in the most extreme examples. Like if we're talking about serial killers, the behavior is abhorrent, but I sort of feel like I do feel like if you knew where they came from, the biology they're working with, the family they're working with, then the behavior makes sense.
That the person at the time is just the result of the incentives that they had to navigate throughout the course of their life.
Yeah.
I mean, you first said it, and I was thinking, God, I don't know about that. But I mean, it's a strong statement, but I get what you're saying. It does make sense. I don't know that I've ever thought about it that way.
This was just a little snapshot of what's to come on this podcast, where I say things, Rob disagrees, and then listens closely, and then goes, "Oh my gosh, David was right." There's more of that to come.
And this is also another snapshot of any opportunity Dave can take to find those rare instances where something he says actually makes sense and is coherent. He will point out to make sure that everyone else knows that. So I think it's good for both of us to back and forth.
This is a good moment. Yeah, it's good. Okay, all right. So let's end this interview on a more enjoyable question. Rob, who is your biggest celebrity crush?
So to answer this question, we're going to have to go back in time about 20 years. For some reason, and I honestly don't know why, I collected... God. You remember those, those milk posters, the Got Milk posters?
Yes.
Remember that? Like that was a big thing in the 90s and 2000s, Got Milk. For some reason, I collected and would put up on my closet in my room Got Milk, like posters for magazines of celebrities that I thought were attractive who participated in that particular.
Okay, hold on, Rob. Just so I'm understanding, I'm trying to think of how to say this. For some reason that you can't figure out, you wanted to post super attractive women with milk on their faces on your.
Go past it. We just need to go past it, Dave.
All right.
We just need to go past it.
I can't figure. I don't know what it meant, Rob. Go. Okay, go ahead.
So there were a number of turn of the century celebrities that made it into the wall, but a couple, Halle Berry, first and foremost. I mean, I would even argue now, celebrity crush still. Rebecca Romijn, big one. I was a big fan of X-Men. This was more in my high school time when the first X-Men movie came out. Good stuff. And then you didn't ask this question, but this is something I tend to bring up is, kind of an add-on or corollary to this question. Well, actually, I'm going to hold off. I want you to answer this question. Then I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. Go ahead. Who's your celebrity crush?
Without a doubt, and there's not even competition, Nicki Minaj.
Nicki Minaj.
Yes.
I did know this about you.
Yes, Nicki Minaj is.
What is it about Nicki Minaj that attracts you to her?
Well, I don't know that I have it seems like in your explanation there was during some formative years you may have seen some things that really seared in there. I don't know if there was a moment with Nicki Minaj, but I think that she's. Have you heard the song Anaconda? Off of
I'm familiar with it, yes.
And if you listen to Anaconda and watch the music video, then that's all you need to know.
That's the answer to the question.
That's the answer to the question. Mm-hmm.
Follow-up question. Who is your celebrity crush that maybe other people would be surprised to know is anyone's celebrity crush, that maybe is not making the top of the list? Because I can imagine Nicki Minaj, when you say that, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm sure a lot of people, when asked the question, it's not out of the realm of possibility that she would be on a short list as a response. But who are those people that would be more surprising? Does it have one person there?
I think I know who. I'm trying to think. I think I know who yours is, and I think this one. A lot of people. Tina Fey.
Tina Fey is yours?
Yeah, I think Tina Fey. But I thought that was yours also.
I mean, I have an intellectual crush on Tina Fey. 30 Rock is one of the best written TV shows, in my opinion, ever. I would watch her, anything that she has written or acted in, I probably have seen and will continue to see. Mm-hmm. But she's an intellectual crush of mine. But
she's not the one. There's someone you're thinking of that really...
Yeah, there is. And this also is someone that has been a long-term crush, and that's Queen Latifah.
Queen Latifah?
Queen Latifah. I have found her to be, I think she is so, especially as she's aged, she's become even more attractive to me. Like, I've seen her, she's on a TV show, I think now. I don't know what it is. I don't watch the show, but I've seen her in ads. She continues to be attractive. I would go see her in things in high school and college just because she was in it, and I thought that she had a great sense of humor, a great aura about her, and I think she's just very attractive. So I've always had a thing for Queen Latifah. So and guess what? Last year I went to a concert and she introduced a performer, so I actually I was hundreds of feet away from Queen Latifah, a lifelong dream of mine.
I want to point, first of all, great answers. I just, for the people listening, I want to point out the level of depth and the time spent on that question, Rob, versus the other questions. Why psychology? I care about people. Who's your crush? Well, the year was 1997 and the Got Milk ad came out. Well, that's good.
You did not answer the question.
What I said. I said.
Oh, Tina Fey, was that your answer?
Yeah, Tina. Yeah, I don't know if I have anybody that's fringe. Yeah, I think Tina Fey. I don't have a. Okay. I'm more mainstream.
Yeah, I think that's ladies and gentlemen, that's what you can kind of expect is more mainstream, kind of surface level, just very reactive.
Yeah, that's right.
Responses from someone like Dave. Whereas for me, you'll get a bit more depth. Again, it's a bit more of a coherent consideration of a variety of sides before coming to a conclusion. So, yeah.
I agree. As long as we're talking about women he's attracted to, Rob is exceptionally meticulous in his descriptions. I agree. All right, well, that's good. Everybody, check out the podcast, Shrink Space. This is Dr. Rob Patterson, and you can find we are on Shrink Space on YouTube. We also have Shrink Space Show on Instagram, on TikTok. and on Facebook. So check us out there. Anything else, Rob?
I think that's it. But sincerely, Dave, do appreciate the opportunity to jump on here, talk to you, and have some other folks get to know me and get to know us and the show. So please tune in, everyone. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob.